What celebrity suffered the worst fall from grace? Allison Mack, Bill Cosby, and Jared Fogle are all in jail. I think fame to jail is a pretty big fall from grace, with Cosby the clear winner for falling furthest. It's one thing to lose your game. It's another thing entirely to lose your freedom. I was disgusted to read about Allison Mack. I grew up with Savile in my teens, so my crush was always her Chloe. Jeffrey Jones, best known for Mr. Rooney in Ferris Bueller and Mr. Deeds in Beetlejuice. He has had numerous problems with profession of child pornography, solicitation of child pornography, problems with registering as a sex offender and updating his sex offender registration, and finally problems with his employers where people were invited to be on set but parents and visitors were up in arms when they were not formally notified he was a sex offender and on set. It was really weird when he showed up in the recent Deadwood movie which just came out in 2019. Jones was an ensemble character during the run of the show in the early 2000s before all of his sex offender stuff came to light. It seemed like he would not have been invited back for the reunion movie for obvious reasons. Not a big star by any means, but Mark Salling, charged due to child pornography and then he committed suicide before he could be sentenced. O.J. Simpson, all-time football great, cultivated a public persona as lovable nice guy in TV and movies after his playing career, and then the real OJ was revealed to the public. OJ and Cosby are the gold medal finalists for this question. Aaron Carter belongs on this list, the purest teeny bopper heartthrob back in the day. Now, Nick Carter has to get a restraining order against him for threatening to hurt his kids. He's clearly dealing with M addiction and the lowest of his lows. He did an IG live where him and a friend are driving around, hyping up Aaron. They go through a drive-thru and Aaron gives the girl a concert tee with his face on it. She had no idea who he was. This is the first time I've heard or thought about Aaron Carter since the mid-2000s or so. I figured like a lot of pop stars, he had a fairly successful run, then just quietly bowed out with his money and lived a normal life. Whoa, had no idea this is what became of him. Any of the child celebrities that were never given a chance at a normal life and ended up getting chewed up and spit out by the industry. Lindsay Lohan and Britney Spears come to mind, but there are many. Mara Wilson managed to escape once she realized acting wasn't for her. She's one of the lucky ones. In the sci-fi fantasy realm, Marion Zimmer Bradley experienced a pretty big posthumous fall from grace. It turned out she'd sexually abused her daughter from age 3 to 13 and ignored or actively supported her husband in molesting numerous boys. Her sexual views are all through the dark cover series, Heritage of Hasta. In fact, is about how an adult man assaulted a teen boy and the elite were all "you are an idiot." That's perfectly normal for an adult man in our society. Not a classic celebrity, but Larry Nassar is a pretty astounding one. The most respected and trusted doctor in the elite gymnastics world had actually been grooming, abusing and assaulting hundreds of gymnasts and especially using it in the top end of the elite scene, even at the Olympics themselves, and USA Gymnastics for doing nothing about it after years of reports. The abusive training style that made it so easy to groom them, as he could just allow them to eat a small snack and that was enough to be the kindest man and savior in their world because the coaching was so horrendous. And somehow the people who facilitated this are still in control. So many vulnerable young girls were subjected to his miracle treatment, apparently working for backs, hips, legs, groins, any injury you can think of, drugged to help them sleep before international competitions and waking up in his hotel room. He's a horrendous human. All these young girls with a dream. It's about the most vulnerable setting you can imagine, but a continuous flow of children. He makes me nauseous to think about. Jimmy Savile. It's not even a contest. Like seriously. There are some good suggestions here, but no one holds a candle to Jimmy Savile. He went from cherished TV personality, a well-known philanthropist, an OB who raised a lot of money for charity, to a serial child rapist and pedophile and just a horrible man who had abused hundreds of children for decades, including kids he was supposed to help on his TV show, or sick children he met through his charity. Sadly, it only broke after his death, but it shone a light on it and the network he had created to keep up his disgusting antics. Because of his charity work, he even once received a literal key to a children's hospital, because he was such a good chap. Seeing pictures of the man just makes my skin crawl. There's also his ties to the Yorkshire Ripper. Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman. As far as I'm concerned, people like Bill Cosby more than earned their fall. Paul Rubens had an undeserved fall. I was gonna say Kevin Spacey, but Harvey Weinstein's fall from grace was more Shakespearean. 4 years ago he was the biggest and most powerful movie producer in the world. Now he's a bum convict, a sex offender. Silent film star Fatty Arbuckle was accused of raping and accidentally killing actress Virginia Rapp. Allegedly in his attempt to rape her, he squashed her to death with his great girth. He was tried 3 times and was eventually acquitted. Rapp most likely died from appendicitis. His career limped along until he died of a heart attack in 1933. Can't believe nobody mentioned Whitney Houston. She went from being America's sweetheart and favorite singer to Little Sea-Kid, topping it all off with a very sad and untimely death. And then her daughter died. Ashley Judd got her career tanked because she pushed back Harvey Weinstein. She lost her chance with a role in Lotta because of him, and she mostly vanished from the screens after he tagged her as a nightmare to work with. I was watching Double Jeopardy last week on TV and was thinking how she literally just disappeared. She was top billed in A-list movies, then suddenly only had bit parts in family films such as Dolphin Tale. Myra Sorvino's career was a similar career trajectory downfall thanks to Weinstein blacklisting her as well, if I remember right. Chris Benoit, great WWE wrestler, then he killed his wife and son. Autopsy report showed his brain was like that of a 70-year-old Alzheimer's patient. Then WWE went and deleted everything that had to do with him. They didn't want him associated with them after that. He did all that wrestling, got so damaged he killed his family, and WWE just wiped him out. I remember that crap happening. It was a weird spiral. I remember him completely breaking down on TV at Eddie Guerrero's memorial, and 2 years later he did what he did. Friday night he was a fallen hero, Tuesday he was a monster, and McMahon still takes zero responsibility for his and his company's part in this kinda crap. Lost Profits guy, Ian Watkins, not to be confused with the other musician Ian H. Watkins, who isn't a kiddie fiddler but was part of Steps or S Club 7 or something like that. Guy was really doing well for himself in the music world, until he was jailed for 28 years for some of the absolute worst acts of child sexual abuse you'll ever hear about. There were also 2 co-conspirators jailed. These were the mothers of the victims. Do not Google the court transcripts. I remember reading that the password to his computer was something like I for kids law. Jesus Christ. Mark Salling from Glee. He got caught with child pee and then hung himself in the forest. There is a lot of darkness around many members of the Glee cast. Lane Staley, singer of Alice in Chains. He suffered from drug addiction for years, but once his fiancée died in 1996, he basically abandoned the band and accepted that his addiction was going to kill him. He never got over her death. He was found in his apartment weeks after he died because he had blocked everyone out of his life. Truly such a loss to grunge and the music industry in general, and such a great guy that just didn't want to get better. My gift of self is raped, my privacy is raked, and yet I find, repeating in my head, if I can't be my own, I'd feel better dead. Lane had a hard life. Mike Starr never forgave himself for leaving him the day before his death. Aaron Hernandez, if he counts as a celebrity. Star Patriots tight end, Super Bowl at 22. His last NFL game was an AFC championship game. 6 months later, he was arrested for murder, convicted, sentenced to life without parole, committed suicide in prison at 27. He was tried for 2 more murders and found not guilty, but there's a good chance he did it. The murder he did get convicted for made sense if he thought that guy was blabbing about the other 2 murders he was caught up and wanted to shut him up. Not the worst, but the current and depressing one, Noel Clarke. Good looking black British dude, talented actor, had earned cred from a role on Doctor Who, a successful directing career, was producing TV shows. Oh, and then 20 women went on the record accusing him of sexual harassment and bullying, and then more followed, independent accusations, a vast amount verified, and it's just, like, seriously, dude, you didn't have to do that. That was a choice. Turns out Mickey the idiot is actually Mickey the C. Brendan Fraser was raped, and when he came forward, his career was destroyed. So glad they got him for Doom Patrol. He really is such a great entertainer. We still love you, Brendan. Armie Hammer. I know he wasn't that big, but as the grandson of an oil tycoon and someone whose career was starting to taking off, I think his reputation will never recover, especially with all the new and disturbing info that has been released to the public. I don't think I've seen any other celeb being accused of cannibalism before. Joe Paterno, one of the best coaches in college football history, squeaky clean image, helped cover up the Penn State pedophilia scandal, where one of his coaches systematically groomed kids to fiddle and rape. Awful. That was very quick. Had the team at 8-1 on Halloween, was fired by November 9, and dead by the 22nd of January. Bill Cosby. All the other people mentioned in these comments are terrible, but most of them aren't in jail right now. He went from America's grandpa to synonymous with rape. Most people are still uncomfortable even talking about it. Max Wright, the father from the show Alf. He went from being a successful guy with a popular show to smoking crack and doing homemade sex tapes with homeless men and eventually dying from his addiction. Shane Dawson. At one point, he was the most popular internet celebrity out there. Then the next day, you'll get demonetized just by saying his name in a YouTube video. Same could be said about David Dobrik. He was YouTube's pride and joy up until about 2 months ago. Michael Richards. Totally his own fault. To watch an otherwise good career get completely nuked in 3 minutes was painful to see. Lance Armstrong. He had everything from gold medals and awards to multi-million-dollar endorsement deals with major companies, only to lose it all because he was using steroids the entire time. He was looked upon as a role model and had a huge fan base around the globe. Now you hear nothing about him. Much bigger than any of that, he had a large percentage of the population wearing wristbands with the name of his charity on them. Recently it has to be Hilaria Baldwin, wife of Alec Baldwin. She pretended for years she was Spanish, featured regularly in Hola magazine as Best Dressed Latina, hosted a successful podcast and was a correspondent on an entertainment channel. Turned out she faked her Spanish heritage completely. She was pretty much disowned by all her sponsors and doesn't appear TV anymore. She now spends her time uploading 1,000 Instagram stories a day of her children. Phil Spector went from producing some of the world's most iconic music with his Wall of Sound to sitting in prison for a murder conviction. To dead on the 16th of January, 2021. We forgot entirely about Matt Lauer. Dude had an actual rape button installed in his office while basically being the voice of American media. What the heck? What the heck is a rape button? I wouldn't exactly say fall from grace, but Bam Margera's life is completely freaking frick nowadays. Would not be at all surprised if he shows up dead of an overdose one of these days. Dustin Diamond, or you know him as Screech. R. Kelly. From the world's greatest to I Believe I Can Fly. Now an 8x8 cell. Dustin Diamond was a pose. His P video shows him being an butt. I'm not sure if you can ever really say that she occupied a position of grace, but Tyler Tequila is the one that fricks with my head. She got famous for being one of the earliest social media influencers, and briefly had a TV show. Now she's a flat earther who openly praises Hitler and believes the end of the world is imminent. Kelly. I obviously don't need to explain why, but it's really unbelievable how influential he was, and low-key still is, to R&B music. Like he may just be the most important singer of that entire genre within the last 40 years, and yet everything he's done has all but erased his once untouchable legacy. What's amazing is that it took so long. He was doing all of this crap openly and it just got ignored. David Carradine. I mean, at least you can get somebody to erase your browser history, but compromising photos of your corpse? NFL running back Ray Rice, who punched his then fiancée on security video. NFL players abuse women all the time, but the TV image buried him. The NFL is strongly against hurting women or children on camera. It's Brittany B. Hers caused her a loss of her financial freedom despite being mentally capable of managing her money for herself. Also, frick her dad. Britney Spears unfortunately ended up with two horrible parents. Her father for basically not letting her do anything, and her mom for letting her do too much. I've seen several interviews with her mother and she just strikes me so much as a showbiz mom. Not a celebrity per se, but very well known and high ranking. Russell Williams. He was a former colonel in the Canadian Armed Forces, so high ranking that he escorted the Queen when she visited Canada and was in charge of an airbase. He broke into women's houses to steal their underwear and take pictures. He later escalated to sexual assault and murder. After the trial, his commission was revoked and, later, medals. He was expelled from the Canadian Forces for service misconduct, the most serious extant charge. His uniform was burned, his medals were cut into pieces, and his commission scroll, the instrument of his commission, was shredded, these actions being similar to a military degradation. His vehicle was also crushed and scrapped. He's now serving 2 life sentences. Johnny Depp. He was blacklisted by Hollywood basically overnight over claims of abuse from his ex-wife Amber Heard. The saddest part is there's evidence that she lied about a lot of things and that she herself was abusive. I'm not saying he didn't do anything wrong, but she was just as bad if not worse. But while he got fired from basically every movie he was set to be in at that point except Fantastic Beasts, which he's also been fired from now, Amber has been largely unaffected and went on to star in one of the lead roles in Aquaman and is still set to be in the sequel. It sucks to see Johnny have his life turned upside while Amber didn't even get a slap on the wrist. Jerry from Cheer. Not that he was nearly as famous as most people on this list, but just the meteoric rise premised on his apparent utter wholesomeness. And then the short sharp shock. Whoa, I just had to look up what happened since Cheer. Yikes. Butch Hartman, the creator of cartoons like such as Danny Phantom and Fairly Odd Parents. He's homophobic, transphobic, believes autism can be cured through prayer and traces art when he makes commissions. He has scammed over $200,000 from people who paid for drawings from him. This isn't known by so many people, but he lost a lot of fans and subs on YouTube once the info started leaking. How about worst fall from grace as in most undeserved? Pee Wee Herman got arrested and almost completely lost his career because he was spanking it in a P theater. What else are you supposed to do in a P theater? This isn't the biggest celebrity fall because he's not a big celebrity, but Ian Watkins is quite the read. He was the frontman of alt-rock band Lost Prophets and they had decent popularity on the 2000s. In the shortest way I can put it, among other things, he tried to rape babies as young as 13 months old. Their mothers were complicit and were allowing him to do it and talk about it and got convicted with him. What about Mark McGwire? For 1 year, everyone's eyes were glued to baseball for the home run race, even people not into baseball, then admitted to steroid use. Charlie Chaplin, probably currently the most well-known silent film star. Everyone knows him for his silent films and various other films, but he had a really bad fall from grace in the late 1940s when he was accused of being communist. His movies were straight up banned by 1952 and his re-entry permit to the United States was withheld. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.